Hello, everyone who is watching. My name is Mike Parkman. I'm going to be giving a presentation on modern Buddha monasteries and how they are represented in today as versus when they first were made. So, just for some contents of what I'll be going over in the slideshow, I'll be having I'll go over thesis statement, the start of Buddha monasteries, types of their Buddhism architecture, temple stay, modern Buddha monasteries in Taiwan, some thoughts, and then just all my sources cited. So, thesis statement: Buddha monasteries are seen very differently now than hundreds of years ago. They have changed and are still relevant, but for reasons you may not think. So, just a little background before I get into kind of what modern Buddha or modern monasteries are like now. So monasteries were communities of monks, they had communities of monks or devoted people to Buddhism. The kind of background behind that was they were first made to house monks themselves because they were kind of just nomads this was a few thousand years ago. This was a long time ago. This was back in AD, I believe. And yeah, these monks were nomads. They were wandering around, kind of still doing what they believed was right, helping people and whatnot. But they didn't really have a place to stay, hence, why they were nomads. So eventually, monasteries were erected around, it started in India, but then it went kind of all around Asia. But these monasteries were erected all around Asia. And then they were meant to house monks, and so they could stay, they could practice their religion and teach people the religion, whoever were there. If anyone wanted to become a monk, that's also where they would learn Buddhism. So these monks that were here, they were very devoted, and they kind of lived for Buddhism. They practiced it every day. So these monasteries were sacred grounds under Buddha themselves, to study under. These monasteries. Buddha monasteries were seen as these sacred areas where it was just meant they were like peaceful areas. Sorry to say that, but they were peaceful areas, for these monks. The communities of monks were often also close to towns, so they could help townsfolk spiritually. And when I mean that, I mean they went to these towns, they walked themselves to the towns, and then they kind of blessed, in a way, if you think of it like that, these people spiritually. They tried giving them good fortune, because that was their whole ideology back then, was to kind of help people become better selves, help them become better selves, and they wanted to do this by, a lot of it was they asked these people to do charitable acts in hopes that they would help their soul, hence the spiritual wise. So, just some basic Buddhist architecture to get a little example of what they looked like when they were first made. So, the picture that's showing right now is a stupa and a chaita. So chaitas were just these long halls that house stupas as such. And back when they were first made, they were actually also places where a lot of relics were held, and kind of really important places overall, actually, because stupas still, and even when they first were made, were this symbol of Buddha. This is a very important building for Buddhists to go to pray or to really practice Buddhism to begin with. But when I say that they had relics, they only had relics for a certain amount of time, because soon people actually raided these chaitas and stupas for their relics, and they kind of lost meaning after that. They realized, I don't think we should really house relics here in this building. It doesn't seem like they're safe enough to be here just sitting out in the open, So for a little bit, they kind of lost that kind of meaning, but then they slowly regained it. Not slowly regained it, but it kind of transformed to stupas being, this is the image of Buddha itself. So they just had a bigger meaning, basically, after that. Not saying that these relics being stolen were a good thing, but that's kind of just what happened after they were stolen. Okay, so after the background information, I'm going to talk about a little bit how Buddhist monasteries are used now. One popular thing that they're used for actually is called for a practice called temple stay. So temple stay is actually a program held in a lot of these older Buddha temples / monasteries. The information that I found came from directly from Korea, so temple stay that happened in Korea, and it's basically a way, like today it's used as kind of like a tourist attraction in a way, but the way it is, or what it is you go there and you stay overnight, kind of like a hotel, but you don't just go there to stay overnight, to sleep in overnight. You actually like learn about Buddha and a little bit of what it means to be devoted to Buddha, So it's like I said, it is a program of such. It's not just a hotel or whatever. So you still get some, get to see like culture-wise, like what these people are doing every day and whatnot in these temples. But unfortunately, temple stay was kind of made just as a way for governments to make money off of these places, because over time, Buddha temples didn't really like serve so much popularity as they used to, and that kind of like dwindled them down, and the monks that were there or people that were there like had trouble keeping up with the buildings themselves, so they kind of slowly started falling apart and whatnot. But then temple stay was started, and that's kind of what brought them back, or at least some of them. I don't want to say all of Buddha, like all really old Buddha temples, or sorry, monasteries, they aren't all used for temple stay, but a lot of them are now. But the way I see it, it just seems like the government just finding another way to make money off of this, which is unfortunate, but I mean, it brings some enlightenment towards the monasteries, and you're still going there to learn about culture, so I feel like that's still something that's nice. So, and then another thing that another thing that is shown is modern Buddhist monasteries themselves. Like, are there any monasteries still being made, like currently, because Buddhism has been around for a long time. It's a part of a lot of cultures, and it's a religion and whatnot. So do people still make like these modern monasteries, you could say? And I have found evidence and whatnot, research, that there are definitely still monasteries being made in the name of Buddha and with a lot of modern design. But what I found specifically was some temples that were somewhat recently made in Taiwan. These are, when I say recently, I mean either around the 1980s, 1990s, and then an early 2000s, I believe. So these ones are actually the Fo Gong Shan, the Ten Directions Monastery, and Chung Tai Chan temples. They're all in Taiwan in different countries or districts, but they are all recently made, and they still have meaning that people, go there for Buddha themselves. I also want to point out too that Taiwan has had some history with, how their temples were looking, or like what their temples should look like, because they kind of spanned it off of Chinese and Japanese architecture. Since Chinese designs originated from Indian designs, because like I said, Buddhism is Indian originated. So people saw this, and they kind of China and Japan got their own kind of like designs, architectural designs based off of India, actually. But when Buddhism was spreading around Asia, Taiwan kind of at first based their own architecture like mostly off of China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. So they kind of had to, in the sense, like make their own style of architecture to see like, how can we make our monasteries temples look different than China's, Japan's, Korea's, or Vietnam's, So just for examples, these are some pictures of the temples, pictures of the temples. So on the left, that is the Chung Tai Chan temple, and then on the right is the Fo Guang Shan temple. Both are very, very big structures. Again, they're both in Taiwan. And then we also have the Ten Monastery temple. I could not find a really amazingly good picture of the temple themselves, The temple is big like the other two, like these two, but this picture itself just shows part of the temple, which is just one building, and it's actually an architectural like kind of blueprint of the top view of it too, which is interesting. So I thought just adding that just to see, a little bit an example of what the blueprints would look like for something like this, So kind of to wrap things up, modern monasteries now, there are, like I said, they're still being made and whatnot, and for, people might ask, what does it mean to be modern? In my opinion, for something to be modern, it is to kind of get your own sense of style off of something. In this case, they kind of thought of new ways to make their buildings look, other than like getting their ideas off of other architecture. Sure, that's probably what happened with some of them. They got some ideas, but a lot of these temples do look different from temples like built hundreds of years ago. So, what is it? Sorry. These structures that are being made now do have a little bit of inspiration from past structures, but I do believe that in their own way they are modern and they have their own sense of style. And Buddhism is still around, obviously, and these monasteries, new or old, are still being used to this day. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. And these are my sources cited, and thank you for listening.